Hi, I'm Erin Price with Sargento, and you are listening to the CPGGUYS podcast.
Welcome to the CPGGUYS podcast. Your hosts, Shri Rajagopalan and Peter V.S. Bond, explore how brands and retailers engage consumers in an increasingly digitally driven world. And now, here are the CPGGUYS. Hello and welcome to the CPGGUYS podcast. I'm PVSB, co-host and co-founder. I also serve as head of industry and client engagement at Flywheel, the e-commerce accelerator division of Omnicom. Joining me in the hosting duties for today's episode, as always, is my co-founder of this growing media platform. He is the chief revenue officer at Think Blue Consulting. He's also patriarch of the Raj family media empire. If you don't follow his daughters, Laura and Ria, in their pop star careers, you really should be. They're getting quite explosive. Most recently, he served as the chief customer officer at General Mills. He's the man known as Shri. Shri, we're back from Orlando. We were at CAGNY. It was great to spend a couple days with you. I know we got our bags stuffed with all sorts of merchandise. The craziness. I think the Wall Street Journal actually wrote an article about the frenzy around all the food tables for the giveaways. But what were your thoughts on Orlando?
It was arguably your second time, so you knew what to anticipate. I was a little surprised by just human behavior at a candy table that you can get access to at any grocery store. I'd never seen a mad dash like that. It felt like Coachella all over again. But on to business, Peter. For me, CAGNY was underwhelming, not the conference or the host. Wall Street does a terrific job of hosting this and getting the right people to the forum to chat. So kudos to Wall Street as always for doing that. All our friends, the analysts. Also, I want to say thank you to the CAGNY group for inviting you and me. You know, we were one of maybe 6 reporters and media that was invited to this event, you know, with the likes of New York Times, etc. So we're very thankful that we got that chance. But the presentations themselves, I would say, majority of them were underwhelming because having been a practitioner 30 years in the likes of PepsiCo, J&J, most recently General Mills, as you said, I think the industry's lost for growth. And the industry is not really identifying clearly where it's going to go for growth other than a bunch of arrogant statements. My brand equity is so strong, it's going to come back. Like, where's it going to come back from without strategies that connect the brand equity to outcomes? What do you think?
I think there were in talking to the analysts, the message they gave was they were underwhelmed. I don't think they dealt quite as much with some of the topics that are really top of mind. How do you respond to GLP-1? How do you deal with volume declines? So if you're not going to deal with that, I thought one company came and didn't even give guidance on their numbers in the face of volume decline. So yeah, it was definitely a different temper. But we heard our friend Nick Modi at RBC Capital say, they should probably take a step back and stop trying to deliver the quarter right now and just prepare themselves for a growth phase, which is probably a year or so down the line.
Yeah, so the GLP-1 is a very tricky one, Peter, because companies have been mentioning it to Wall Street as a reason for the growth slowdown. And here you come to this premier forum and you don't have a strategy when quarter over quarter you've been discussing GLP as one of the reasons. That's why I think GLP was a miss. Otherwise, I wouldn't have even bought it up.
Well, Sri, we're going to get that into this in another episode that we're going to record and release. Yeah, we will. Hey, Shri, thanks for joining as always. Before we introduce our guest, just a little housekeeping to our audience. Please make sure you're subscribing to our podcast on your favorite platform by clicking the follow option, particularly on Apple and Spotify. And if you're on there, scroll down to the area where they have ratings and give us a star rating. Our favorite number is 5. It's entirely up to you, but giving us great ratings helps make our podcast more findable by the algorithm. To industry luminaries like yourselves, who can learn and be entertained by this podcast. So please do that. So let's get on to our special guest today. Perishable foods are arguably the final frontier in the world of digital commerce. Household penetration in digital accelerated in 2020, with the onset of the pandemic, but most volume occurs in physical retail due to the impact on overall product condition and last mile delivery. We're pleased to have an e-commerce practitioner in the space joining us today among a great deal of a very varied experience. Sargento Foods is a family-owned manufacturer of quality cheese products for over 70 years. Last summer, our guest was named a general manager of consumer products at Sargento. In this new role, she and her team will be responsible for the next phase of consumer products growth. Previously, she served as senior vice president of marketing. During her 17 years at Sargento, she led the company's food service and ingredients division, refined the company's strategic planning process, launched an e-commerce strategy. That'll be great to talk about. And its first integrated marketing communications department. So please join Sri and me in welcoming to the podcast, Erin Price. Erin, good day. How are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Well, we are very excited to have you. As I mentioned before you joined, we don't often have people on the podcast, since we tend to be a little more digitally focused, that come from the perishable foods area of consumer goods. So we are just so incredibly happy to have you join us. Before we get to the questions we prepared, I gave a very brief introduction. If you could share with our audience an overview of Sargento Foods and what your role is there now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you said, Sargento, we are a third generation family owned company. The family still is very involved in the day-to-day operations. Louis Gentine, our third generation CEO, just down the hall, he's here every day. He's definitely very engaged in the business. And so we really see our role as to bring exactly what you said, high quality premium cheese innovations to the consumer, understand deeply consumer insights and what they're looking for in the dairy category, and make sure that we're partnering with our retail partners to help encourage that growth, whether it is in store or through the e-commerce channels. We really are trying to focus on growing the category for the long term so that all stakeholders can benefit.
Thank you for that, Erin. We're going to direct our audience to the digital liner notes of this episode. They can find links to Erin's profile on LinkedIn and Sargento's LinkedIn page and their corporate website. So as you're listening to this conversation, as you're wont to do, you can multitask, read a little bit, learn a little bit, listen, be entertained, all of the above. That's what we're going to do. So thank you for that. Why don't we get to our conversation? So I'm going to start off, Erin, and I would love to hear about what you consider to be pivotal points in your journey to get to you where you are in your role as general manager of consumer products at Sargento Foods.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first thing, I have been working in CPG my entire career. So right out of college, I actually worked for both General Mills and Johnson & Johnson. So a couple companies in common, Sri. And, really have always enjoyed the consumer insights and serving the consumer, and CPG, especially perishables. There's such an immediacy to it. I find that really, really fun. And so that's been my whole career path. About 17 years ago, I found Sargento. And never intended to be at a single company for 17 years. It's been, I look back now and feel like I can't believe that it's been that long. But the reason that I stayed is actually a couple things that you said in the introduction to this episode. At Sargento, because we are family owned, we really have the luxury of taking the long-term view. It's not about making cuts or doing things that aren't right for the consumer to make a short term or a quarterly number or, to satisfy an analyst community. We are always focused on the long term, building stakeholder value for our employees, for our consumers, for our customers, our retail partners, our communities. And it really is so much fun to have the ability to impact consumers, build a brand for the long term, invest in the right things. And so I'm so grateful to the Sargento family because they've really given me an amazing career here over 17 years.
First of all, I'm going to congratulate you on all the success, both for the brand as well as your own career, moving up the ladder, starting in brand management all the way to being the general manager today. what I'd love to, and I think our audience would love to learn from someone like you who has been climbing up the marketing ladder onto brand leadership period, is what are some of those leadership anchors that you've kind of held on to as clutch in your own life as you've kind of moved up in the ladder and leading a brand today for in a very important dairy category, as well as if somebody listened to this episode and they're like, hey, I want to be the next Erin Price, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a journey, and one that, there were plenty of mistakes made along the way, trust me. But there's a couple things that I think I've learned along the way. And the first is really just, it's all about the people. I think earlier in my career as a brand manager and then a director, I think, when you're younger in your career, you tend to be very task focused, and I have to achieve this task and I have to do this project. And the further you go in your career, the more you realize that really isn't what's important. What's important is mentoring and nurturing the people who work for you, the people who work around you, building strong cross-functional relationships to make sure that you can impact things across the organization, having strong communication. And so the earlier, I would always tell people, the earlier in your career that you can pivot from being task-focused to being people-focused, the better leader that you're going to be. And the second thing that I have learned, and I talk about this a lot with my team, is as a leader, you have to be very, very focused on, are you working on the big rocks? Sort of the Stephen Covey, the big rocks and the sand and all of that sort of metaphor. There are limited hours in the day, and everyone has a limitation. There are so many minutes that you can be doing things. And for most of us, we also want to have families and lives outside of work. And so you have to be really choiceful where you put your time and your energy. And if you're not focusing on those big rocks, you really have to sort of reevaluate what you're doing during a day. It's you have to do, as the leader, you have to do what matters most, so that you are delivering the most for the company and maximizing the time that you're there. And then hopefully you can go off and enjoy your family and enjoy your personal life and have hobbies and have a rich and fulfilling life outside of work as well.
You bet. One of the follow-ups to Erin I'd love to ask you on that is the role of mentors in your own career. And then today, one of the things that I've benefited from, Peter, both of us CPG guys have benefited from, is a lot of reverse mentorship on subject matters which were newer to us, as especially in the technology space. AI is one of them. We'd love to hear, the audience would love to hear, what was the role of mentors in your career? And then do you believe in reverse mentorship? And are you getting reverse mentorship today?
Absolutely, to both of those. My experience with mentors have been, and I always give these people this advice when they're looking for mentors here at Sargento, is you can't rush a mentor relationship. A lot of times companies will try to, put this person with this person and here, have a mentor relationship. And it doesn't work like that. You have to find someone that you have a genuine trust and a genuine connection with. And so my advice to people looking for more senior mentors is just spend the time getting to know the senior leaders as people and understand them and watch their philosophy and watch how they operate. And then find someone that you might have a genuine connection with. That's how you're going to get a great mentor relationship. Just picking someone in the directory because they have a more senior title than you, you're wasting your time and their time. So really try to find that connection before you establish that relationship. And the second part of your comment about reverse mentorship, 100%. In my bio, one of the things that we did at Sargento is we really built an integrated marketing communications team that functions sort of as our internal agency. And they have so much deep expertise in things like social media and AI and analytics and e-commerce. And in all of those spaces, I have identified an informal, I don't think we call them a reverse mentor, but they are my reverse mentors where I can call them and say, a couple of years ago, I did this. All right, TikTok, walk me through it, guys. What am I looking at? How does the algorithm work? Why are people spending so much time on this? And they do, and they can just walk me through it. And it's great that we have those relationships on my team that, sometimes the more junior team members, they really get a kick out of, I think, being the one to explain, because they're the ones with the expertise. They're the ones with the pulse on, what Gen Z is into and what they're thinking and how they're reacting. And so I have no shame whatsoever. I will pull someone into my office and say, hey, show me this app, show me that app. How are you using this? What is new in your world? Because you have to stay really close to what the consumer is doing. And it's so easy to get stuck in your own ways and not continue learning throughout your career.
Erin, you just made Shri incredibly happy, because if there's one thing I hear him crowing about in terms of brand leaders and CMOs, is the fact that if you don't understand these social media platforms and you're not asking the people around you, you shouldn't be in that role.
100%.
Yeah.
The traditional media world is gone, long gone, in fact. And that's not how you're going to reach consumers. That's not how you're going to communicate anymore. You have to understand where they are so you can reach them.
So let's talk about those big rocks you mentioned. Would love to hear about the key strategic initiatives that you're kind of focused on in your role.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, for this year specifically, we are very focused on innovations. We have a lot of really big product innovations that we're launching in 2025. We have a few more confidential ones that we are readying for 2026. But, to the discussion of, I think, CPG in general and perishables maybe specifically, a lot of people are struggling for growth and struggling to connect with consumers. And at Sargento, one of the things that we know consumers are seeking right now is value. But value does not just mean price. It does not just mean going down to the cheapest item, to private label only. I'm never going to look at anything else. And it also just doesn't mean just equity, as you were talking about. You can't just rest on your laurels and say, well, I've got this great equity built up. They'll come back eventually. You have to give consumers something to bring them back to the shelf, to bring them back and give them something that really adds something to their life. And in our case, how they eat. And so for us, focusing on really consumer-driven, insight-driven innovation that solves consumers' problems and meets their needs, that is how we are most focused on driving the value for the consumer that hopefully is going to bring growth, not just to Sargento, but to the dairy category as a whole moving forward.
And if I could ask a follow-up to that, as you're building innovation, how much are you taking into consideration some of your key retail customers in terms of, I'm designing something that might be appropriate for their consumer base, or they've come to you with some insights and that is shaping how you're going to market? Would love to understand, I guess, how partnerships with key retailers influence what you're doing from a brand perspective.
Absolutely. That is something that at Sargento we spend a lot of time focusing on. We love being able to partner with our customers, with our retail partners, and getting their insights and what are they seeing with their consumers. And so we want to know, we love it when they share their insights. They have tons of shopper data. They all have shopper cart data. They know what their customers are buying and what they're not buying and who's online and who's doing pickup and who's coming into the store. And the more that they are able to share those insights with CPG manufacturers, the better products we're going to develop, the better communications we're going to develop, the better programs we're going to put together with them. So it's a big focus for us, not only in kind of the omni space with communications and marketing plans and all of those pieces, but translating that and funneling it to the innovations as well. And then we also, when we develop these innovations, when we test them with consumers, we will do subsections and subcuts of channel-specific consumers. So what does the club consumer think of this? What does the Walmart consumer think of this? What does the insert, retailer X, Kroger, Albertsons, whoever it is, we're looking at that to see if there are differences and to see if there are things that we need to do to pump up the value or change the way we're communicating or suggest different shelf placement at these different retailers. And so it becomes kind of a big puzzle. And of course, you can't, be everything to everybody. There are choices and trade-offs we have to make. But we definitely want to make sure that we are connecting with what our retailers need for their consumers, as well as just sort of the broad national view.
One of those areas on value, Erin, that worries me for the industry, it's not a one brand, individual brand issue, is, when we say value, we tend to look at the entire portfolio and we get carried away with, we have to create value across the board. There's a club strategy already existing for that. I worry more about opening price points, even if it means a price pack architecture strategy. Would love to get your viewpoint and just coaching to the industry in general. Is a brand better off focused on opening price points versus trying to attack the whole portfolio, which could took years to deliver anything for the consumer?
I think that's a really tough question that I do think a lot of us are wrestling with right now, because I do see there as being a huge role for price pack architecture, especially for, one of the things that my team is talking about right now is, are there core items where the normal price pack is, that's tried and true? Do you need to go to more of an opening price point or a smaller pack or a trial size for some of these innovations specifically where, hey, this might be a little bit of a risk for a consumer to spend $3, $4, $5 on a pack? Do they need something where it's just a few items, you can just try it? And what role does that play? I think another complicating factor with that, though, is a lot of customers are looking at their sales trends. They want to be driving dollars in their category, and they look at a smaller pack size and they say, oh my gosh, are we going to be trading people down? Are we going to trade people out of the standard size into an opening price point? We're going to be taking dollars out of the category. It takes a big risk. And so I think, this is just my opinion here, I think it's really going to take a retailer and a manufacturer partnering together to take a little bit of a risk here, say, hey, we're going to try this. We're going to test it in one division or a handful of stores. How can we work together to maybe untangle this a little bit? And hey, look, maybe it's not going to work. Maybe my theory is totally wrong. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it would be great if somebody could test this out a little bit and see if maybe that theory holds.
The one thing on that one, Erin, I'd like to just ask you a follow-up is on innovation, not value, which is we're in a world today with innovation where the consumer may encounter an innovation 365, 24/7 in any channel, any format. Are you guys generally creating 360 omni-channel plans for innovation? Are you more focused on, hey, if I got to release it, I got to be in store first on the shelf or is it always a surround 360 plan?
We always do 360 plans. We really don't think that, again, where I went earlier, I'm not sure the old traditional model of wait till you get 90% ACV, turn the TV support on, wait until 80% of the country has seen the commercial 3 times, and then you launch the coupon. I don't think that exists anymore. And so we are very focused on, we have shopper and omni support that turns on, really as soon as the shelves are set. And different retailers take different amounts of time to get all of their stores set. And of course, we understand that. But we are very focused on, for our large retail partners that thankfully have wonderful omni capabilities that we get to tap into and partner with them to create these support plans in store, on their website, on site, off site media, within their whole e-commerce and omni universe. That's how you're going to be successful with innovations, is because as soon as it's on shelf, you need those customers who are walking into those stores to notice it, to try it, to understand it. You can't wait for national communications anymore. Those days are just gone.
We could not agree more with you, Erin. But on the same angle, right, as you mentioned, you built a career at Sargento. And how do you envision the Sargento brand actually evolving under your leadership over the course of time? A lot of this you've kind of already hinted at.
Yeah. I think that my team is we're always going to be focused on delivering that consumer value. We take it very seriously. We call it our Sargento family promise, that, we are dedicated to providing a quality premium experience, bringing them something that meets their needs, bringing them innovation, new things, new ways to enjoy real natural cheese. And so I see it as a continuation. And I think it is more about just staying true to that core of who we are and who we always have been, but recognizing that the consumer is consuming media in different places, and they are looking for value in different ways that might be totally different than what consumers were saying they wanted, 10, 15 years ago. And so it's really important to stay very close to the consumer. We stay very tight with them. We're always doing, even just the foundational research, not just about a specific project here or there, but talking to the younger generation, Gen Z, millennials, trying to understand how they're different, what they're looking for, how are they consuming cheese, so that we're able to continue to tailor our messaging to all people and to all consumers who are looking for, again, that premium brand experience.
Let me remind our audience that today we are speaking with Erin Price. She's the General Manager of Consumer Products at Sargento Foods. So back to the innovation track, Erin, would love to hear any recent innovations that have been particularly impactful from your perspective, or of which you're particularly proud as an example of where this brand is going.
Absolutely. We are right in the middle of rolling out our 2025 innovations right now, and I am so proud of the team because they really knocked it out of the park this year. We have 3 massive innovations that we're launching all at the same time. The first is we are actually launching Sargento Natural American cheese slices. So up until this point, American cheese has only been able to be processed cheese. You have not been able to replicate that classic American melt and flavor and texture with a natural cheese until now. So we are so excited to be launching this. This makes the best grilled cheese you have ever had in your entire life. And so we're super excited about that one. We're also launching Sargento Seasoned Shreds. We partnered with the flavor experts at McCormick to use Frank's Red Hot, Cholula hot sauce, and also their McCormick red pepper seasoning. And we put them in blends of shredded cheese so that the consumer can have a bold and spicy experience on whatever recipe they choose. We have suggestions, but they're welcome to use them however. And then the third one is a snack item, Sargento Shareables, which is a hearty portion of cheese slices and Mondelez crackers put together. There's about 3 or 4 servings in a tray so that you can have a shareable snack with someone that you care about. So 3 huge innovations rolling out right now. I'm so excited. I could talk about these for.
Yeah, I'll say, Shri, I know you'll probably comment on it, but the talk of CAGNY was these partnerships and flavor in particular. Flavor was what we heard time and time again as where most of food companies are focusing their innovation. So you're definitely on trend. Shri?
I'm going to comment about the innovation in a second, but first for our audience, Erin, where can our audience expect to find these innovations? Can they walk in store? Can they find it on your website? Can they find it on Amazon?
Yep, absolutely. You can definitely go to sargento.com to learn more and see the packaging of all of these great innovations. We are in process right now of rolling them out across the country, so they will be in stores nationwide. It's an ongoing process. But you should be able to find them in retailers and in e-commerce. Another good point over the next few weeks here.
Of course, what's the first thing Peter and I are going to do and be distracted for the rest of this episode? Anybody want to guess? We're going to be going to sargento.com and looking at the innovation. But hey, you couldn't have picked a better partner in McCormick. I think they were the best of the best as it stood out at CAGNY. Really love what they're doing from a spice standpoint and their absolute dominance of spice in store and on the shelf, and that grilled cheese, can't wait for it.
It's truly, truly amazing. I mean, talking just about the natural American slices for a minute, it's been an ongoing trend for a long time, but consumers continually tell us they want more real natural offerings. They don't want to eat processed food. But again, the one thing that they could never quite walk away from was that true American cheese taste and experience and grilled cheese. So, it took our R&D folks several years actually to create this patent protected process of how do you create a sliced natural American cheese. And the initial consumer response has been phenomenal. And it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful.
No surprise, the CPG guys will definitely taste test it, and we'll do it right here on the episode during one of the episodes. So more to come on that one when it's released in the marketplace. But I'd love to, earlier in this episode, you mentioned you are an insights-driven company anchored on the consumer. It's kind of the Sargento family's promise to the industry, right, and to consumers. Would love to learn the thinking behind. Do you leverage consumer insights? Do you do shop-alongs? Are you doing your own panel research? Is it informing R&D? And then I believe sampling is back in a big way. Are you engaged in sampling and getting feedback? Like, if you could give us a summary of how all that is done and how it feeds the innovation, as well as, keeping stuff in the portfolio or discontinuing it for that matter.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, all of the above. We have an absolutely phenomenal new platform development team that is supported with absolute experts in insights. And they use all of those tactics. You will find them, in shop-alongs, doing in-store observations, in-home with the consumer, watching them, how they create a lot of these different meals and where their pain points are and what they're looking for. And it's really interesting for me personally to see the evolution, which really sort of accelerated after the pandemic, of how you can do so much of this research digitally now. And so we are doing a lot of, Zoom focus groups and Zoom in stores and Zoom in homes where, consumers are recording themselves. For the natural American slices, we actually, at one of the early prototypes, we sent it to consumers' homes and we said, okay, set up your camera, your iPad, or whatever you use, and we want you to film yourself making a grilled cheese with this. And walk us through the whole process. Tell us where you're satisfied, where you're dissatisfied, what's in your head. Just keep your train of thought going. And it was fascinating to watch them because they were alone in their kitchen and they sort of forgot that the camera was there. And they just walked us through where, oh, I can't believe that melt, or, oh, that's a little drippy over here. Maybe they need to work on that. It's wonderful to see. And my view is always the closer you can get to the consumer, the better the end product is going to be. And so whatever form that takes, whether it is in person or digitally or, studying data, we have our own consumer panel that we have stood up where we have thousands of consumers that we can very quickly get a survey out to them or send them a concept photo and say, hey, what do you think of this or this? And so we're just constantly getting that feedback that we can use to deliver these great innovations.
The panel that you refer to, Erin, I'm assuming it's not a static panel, that it continuously changes because the industry is full dynamic. Our consumerism is dynamic at this point.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. There are certain, there's an algorithm to that too, how long people can be in when they flow in and out. We're constantly rebalancing it, to have the right demographic mix and geographic mix. And I mean, all of those wonderful things. Again, we have an excellent insights team that spends a lot of time managing and nurturing our panel so that it's ready and ready to go when we need it.
Now, this wasn't part of the script, but listening to you, I think I know how your answer is going to be. I got to imagine AI is central to a lot of stuff you guys are doing in marketing. Is that reasonable?
It is. We are taking a very thoughtful, I think, test and learn approach into AI. And so, starting off a couple years ago, just looking at, hey, how can AI help us take the data that we already have? All of these consumer studies, they're all in various PowerPoint decks and binders and Excel tabulations. The data is all over the place, and we have the most rich consumer data. But a lot of times, if you want to say, hey, how did millennials react to concept XYZ? Okay, you're relying on somebody to remember what PowerPoint presentation that was in, what year, what folder, who had it, how do you find that piece of data? So just starting with tools that, can really very quickly ingest all of our consumer learning, and you can use like a real language model to ask it questions and it can spit back to you, hey, in 2018, millennials said XYZ. Great. That's an awesome use of AI that just saves us time and makes sure that we're not wasting all these insights that we have.
It is heartwarming to hear a general manager of a brand actually discussing a real AI model, because that's what inspires the troops and then inspires retail and then inspires the industry. Really well done.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm passionate about, again, it gets back to my big rocks. Do I want all the resources and the might of Sargento focused on searching for pieces of data? Or do I want them figuring out, hey, how do I take this insight and turn it into a great new product?
So, Erin, how do you see Sargento differentiating itself from the competitive market in terms, you gave some great examples in the partnership you're doing with McCormick on its products, but even beyond products, just like the services and capabilities you bring to the trade to really differentiate you as the preeminent player in the dairy category?
Absolutely. And I'll go back to, again, I think a lot of our advantages come from being family owned and being able to focus on the long-term benefit of all of our stakeholders. So, talking about working with our retail partners, we are so proud. We had, even through the pandemic, we had fill rates of 98%. So we really focus on, again, we are creating and giving best in class customer service and support to all of our retail customers. So save a couple hiccups, obviously, kind of during the worst of it. We're really proud that is something that we focus on. And we get a lot of questions about, well, gosh, there's got to be a cost, to serving at that high of a level. But it's so important to our family, to our culture, to who we are, that we are going to support our partners in that way. So that's just another example of, same thing with our Omni support. We were a very early supporter of Omni and working with these retail media networks and figuring out with our retail partners, hey, seems like there's something here. Seems like there's a new way that we can be engaging our customers and our consumers jointly. And we're thinking this e-commerce thing, we know perishable is a little late to the party, but it's catching up rapidly. And how do we take advantage of that? And how do we help our partners take advantage of that as well? It goes up and down our supply chain. We want to make sure that our suppliers, our patron farms, we want to make sure that they are doing well also, so that they're not under too much pressure and that they're able to support their families and their growth aspirations. It really does all come down to, we're family owned. We focus on doing what's right for all of our stakeholders. And it's as simple as that.
Erin, a quick follow-up before Shri closes this out with you. You made mention of retail media. It seems every week, maybe every day, a new retail media network or offering appears. I'm sure you're getting inundated with requests for investment.
Mm-hmm.
How do you approach that? Is it a trade issue? Is it a national brand issue? Is it a partnership of the two? Like, what makes you really think about how you're going to be very strategic in this new growing channel for communications, which is really, it's really powerful, right? It's got performance marketing that linear television could never achieve. But I'm just kind of curious how you think about this.
It's been an interesting ride the last few years as we've really gone deep in that. And the word that I keep coming back to in my head to answer that question is it's a balance. I think that you have to be very careful to create that right balance, because we saw kind of with the first launch of these retail media networks, there's a lot of folks went really deep into that and really pulled a lot of their equity spending, upper funnel spending away. They really got seduced by the performance media. It's immediate. You can see it. I turned a product right now. I have a ROAS of $26, whatever these amazing numbers were. And you just keep pumping more and more and more and more into that. The problem is, and that's great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not criticizing. It's amazing. And the tools and the tactics and what we can do is unbelievable and so exciting. But you have to balance that with, you also have to make sure that you're telling consumers who maybe aren't in your categories or not in your categories now, who are you? What do you stand for? Sargento is a family-owned company. We believe in innovation. Those are important messages that have to get out there also that you're not going to get in performance media. So my overall take is all of those things have a role. Trade, very important. National media, upper funnel, equity driving, very important. Performance media, super important and probably becoming even more important all the time. But it's balancing all of those pieces. And then as a general manager, making sure at the end of the day that you have a P&L that works, that delivers value for the retail partners, value to the consumer, and then also drives your family stakeholder value also.
You said it right up front, right? If you create value for consumers, stakeholders, the family, consumers, you can't lose. So let me wrap it up with this last question. Of course, we're in a changing, dynamic world today, but what emerging market trends do you believe will influence the cheese industry in the coming years? We've already discussed AI, but specifically the industry.
Yeah, I think you talked about a little bit at your beginning, but the GLP-1 is really interesting to me because we know that there is a small number of consumers right now who are on a GLP-1 drug specifically. However, I think it is influencing overall how people eat and how people think about what they should be eating. It's almost like these GLP-1 friendly foods are sort of a little of a shortcut or a signal for what people should be focusing on. And we know that prioritizing their protein intake is really, really important. So that's something that we're looking into too, because we know that dairy is one of the easiest and most delicious ways to get more protein either into your meals, into your snacks. And we have real natural varieties of slices and shreds and snacks. There's everything in between that offers these protein adding either ingredients to a meal or a snack on the go. So we're really seeing that that's where we need to go. So
we saw a lot of brands starting to talk about packaging and leaning into high protein or even saying GLP-1 friendly diet strategy. So I think we're going to see more of that in the coming year. But Erin, Sri and I really want to thank you for joining us today and sharing your insights about how Sargento is positioned to really thrive in today's omni-channel world. We really appreciate you joining us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Sri, that was a fascinating episode. So great to have someone from a perishable background to talk about it. You know, we think about cheese and dairy as one of those categories where innovation hasn't happened in a long time. And she just flipped it on its head. And she took advantage of a lot of the trends we saw at CAGNY around flavor and saying, we're going to lean into that. We're going to introduce new products through partnerships. What a great strategy.
First of all, I got to say, what a great human being in general, right? Her answers were amazing. She talked about stakeholders, the consumer, brand pride, the family. She started by thanking the family for her career at Sargento. She's open to reverse mentoring and learning every day. She's with the times in terms of artificial intelligence, how she thinks about media. You know what, folks that work for her at Sargento, you're lucky to have her as a leader because you're learning and you're growing every day with her. Then the actual innovation portfolio, I'm going to go gaga goo goo over the grilled cheese. What about you?
I can't agree more, Sri. I know Nadia is going to love that, and I know Zara is going to be excited about the fact that it is natural cheese product that we're putting in front of her. So looking forward to receiving that. I think there's so much more that's coming out of the perishable food category. She said it's a little late to the game in omni-channel commerce, but I think that we're going to see a lot of innovation in this area more so than others in the store.
No doubt about that one, Peter. The other one I was thinking of is we were recently at CAGNY. We heard about collaborations. The McCormick one should be simply brilliant. I'll be looking forward to that one.
That's a good one. So, Sri, as always, thank you for joining us. To our audience, first of all, Don't forget, follow us on Apple, Spotify, whatever your platform is. And if you're on there, give us a rating. We greatly appreciate it. We appreciate the 35,000 plus followers of the CPG Guys on LinkedIn that you trust us to both educate and entertain you. And we look forward to speaking with you on the next episode of the CPG Guys podcast. Goodbye. The content in this podcast episode is provided for general informational purposes only. By listening to our episode, you understand that no information contained in this episode should be construed as advice from CPG Guys LLC or the individual author, hosts, or guests, nor is it intended to be a substitute for research on any subject matter. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by CPG Guys LLC. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The views expressed by CPG Guys LLC do not represent the views of their employers or the entity they represent. CPG Guys LLC expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, or inability to use this podcast or the information we present in this podcast.